Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
So today we have a special guest, Mary Gwak, owner's title, and she's going to talk about how vesting strategies protects equity and secures client for life. So listen up. This is very important.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. I will make sure that this is worth your time and it's invaluable. It's something that I'm coming across quite a bit. So I'm actually doing really kind of a big campaign with a lot of my clients. But before we get into how you guys can utilize this knowledge and this information, I'm going to take a couple of minutes to just talk about vesting. Some of you who have been in buyer transactions have probably been in a situation where escrow will ask you, or ask the buyer, excuse me, they will ask the buyer, how would you like to take title? So typically what I find is that buyers make that decision in a very short period of time. Some of your buyers who are well-versed in the buying process may already have one that they know of, so most commonly between husband and wife. Trick question. If you're representing a buyer that is husband and wife and you see a couple of different options, the most common ones that agents will gravitate towards is either joint tenants or community property with rights of survivorship. So the trick question is, which would you advise your client? It's there's not really a wrong answer, but can we just kind of get a couple people to what you would think just off the top of your head before we even get into the thought? So there's joint tenants or community property with rights of survivorship.
For married people?
For married people.
Community property rights of survivorship.
Anybody else? The main difference of the two is going to kind of be my lesson or what I want you guys to take away today. So we gave you guys a vesting chart. Sorry, it's not in color. I'm not going to spend time with every single one. I'm going to glaze over a couple of them because I really don't want you guys to memorize it. Right? Now, technically, as real estate agents, we're not supposed to advise our clients. So some of my clients that are really by the books will just basically connect me with their buyer and I will speak with them. The different ways of holding title it's not just as easy as, picking one. There's actually an aftermath to it if you choose correctly or incorrectly, right? And that has to do with taxation and what happens to the property should something happen to one of the owners. So the time that we're going to spend the most amount of time is going to be community property with rights of survivorship, joint tenancy, and then I would like to talk to you a little bit about tenancy in common. Let's just get that one out of the way first.
I feel like that one's getting a little more popular these days.
Yes, I do. And that's why I wanted to kind of talk about it a little bit. Tenancy in common is most often used amongst partnerships. So if Gina and I were to find a property and we were going to go and invest in a property, she and I are not related. We're not married to each other. She's not my sister. She's got her money. I've got mine. We're going to invest in a property together. So most often we would do that as tenants in common. Couple of the things about tenancy in common is there's no rights of survivorship. So if I were to get run over by a bus, my half or my position goes to my estate. It goes to my family. And same thing for Gina. One of the interesting things about tenancy in common is that's really one of the only ways that you can segregate percentages. The other ways of holding title is equal proportion amongst the owners. So sometimes I will get, especially in Irvine, we have a very ethnic community here. So we'll get some of these ethnic families that are like parents are giving some of the money and they've got their 2 kids on title. But parents are like, well, I'm funding the whole thing. So I want to be 60% and each of my sons are going to be 40%. And I want to hold title as joint tenants amongst all 3 of us. It's not possible. So if they say they want to designate a percentage of ownership, it must be tenants in common. It's not available as a joint tenancy for that reason. But because tenants in common has, if one person dies, that person's ownership is severed from the surviving owner, meaning mine goes to my estate. So what I typically advise people is, if you are holding title as tenancy in common, you want to either be holding title as a trust or an LLC. Because if not, even the intent is to have my portion passed to my son, it's not going to automatically. If I'm holding it as a single person, it's going to actually pass into probate. So in order to avoid that, if Gina's got her trust and I've got my trust and we designate the percentage and I die, my trust will basically filter the ownership to who it needs to go. So we'll get that one out of the way.
So
Any
even if
question?
even if you have a will, it still goes to probate.
That's right. That's right. And that's actually a very common question, guys. This last Saturday, I did a seminar for a group of like 70 consumers, homeowners. And in both segments, I did 2 segments. That was probably about 10 different people asking that. You know, most of your consumers that you're dealing with do not understand that wills don't have powers in the sake of real estate transactions. It doesn't mean it doesn't hold in the law or in a courtroom. But if your client passes away, gets run over by a bus, shows you a will and says his son is the full beneficiary, you can't take that and take a listing agreement. You can't take that and open escrow with it. We can't clear title. So the will is simply an instructional piece for the courts. A will can be backed by a trust, but just a will itself will not pass title or avoid probate. So that's actually, I mean, I'm telling you guys, it has nothing to do with intelligence. It has nothing to do with savvy. Your consumers just don't know. So our job in being in this industry, I believe, and I'm very passionate about this, is we have to educate our clients and people that we know. The next one that we're going to talk about is, we'll kind of just go into this. So I came up with a very catchy title, if you will, the $700,000 mistake that a lot of people make in our industry by not properly advising our clients. And I use the term $700,000 or that figure because in our area, it's not uncommon for some of these ways that people get trapped by holding title the wrong way, and then a spouse passes away unexpectedly. So we're going to spend some time today talking about the step-up trap. Do any of you know what I'm talking about when I talk about tax step-up? So the primary difference, we can go to the next slide, Carlos. The primary difference of community property with rights of survivorship and joint tenants is a difference in step up. So when you're representing a buyer, and this is both for a transaction, and this is also an amazing conversation for you guys to have with your friends, family, people you meet who own a home. So it's not just glossing over someone's title. Like I told Shweta actually this morning to come to this meeting because I was researching a property for her and I saw that her clients were holding title as joint tenants. So joint tenancy is one of the most common ones that we see from the title line. It's been available for 1 billion years. Community property with rights of survivorship has only been around for about 25 years. And that is only available to married couples. So if you're a married couple, your clients, your family, your friends, you're married and you are holding title as joint tenancy, that's where you need to offer some advice and get them to switch from the joint tenants into community property with rights of survivorship. What I'm finding that's really effective with my buyers who have a lot of experience, feel comfortable with the topic, while they're at the escrow table, helping their clients choose vesting, They're basically putting out a secondary sentence out in the conversation. By the way, I've started taking some time to explain this to my buyers. Here's the vesting chart. And if you know of anyone else you would like me to do a vesting review, I'm happy to do that. And it's a great way to get referrals from your buyers, because people will say, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Yeah, let me give you my parents' address. Let me give you my uncle's address. And would you check it? It's a fancy word when we say vesting review. A vesting review is essentially you calling me, texting me, or emailing me. Hey, Mary, can we get copies of the vesting deeds on 123 Apple Street? That will be the vesting review, because I will tell you, this is how they hold title, and here's the deed. Next slide.
Mary, one more time, you
Yes.
said, oh, there's a lot of married people that will title in joint tenancy. you
Yes.
said? Okay.
Yes.
And that we should.
Check to see if they are.
If
Yes,
they are, and
Yeah.
then have, I don't know, recommend, is that the right word?
yes,
That they go ahead and change that to community property rights of survivor.
correct.
And in doing that change.
Yeah.
Will that trigger any type of new assessment?
It will not,
It will not.
because the parties don't change.
Right.
You're just changing the manner in which you hold title. So joint tenancy is most often the ones that people default to because it's been around the longest. I'm going to talk about joint tenancy a little bit, and the stuff that I'm going to explain to you is basically a summarization of this chart, and hopefully not as boring as the chart. Joint tenancy is available to anyone. I can buy a property with my brother and we can be joint tenants. It doesn't have to be specifically for married people. It can be between anyone. One of the main benefits of joint tenancy is that you will avoid probate. You are able to basically know securely if something happens to you, the surviving owner will get your position. So what does that mean? That means you don't want to use that if it's me and Gina, because she's got her family, I've got mine. But if I'm buying a property with my grown son, maybe I already know that it's going to go to him, so I would use that. One of the main things about joint tenancy that I think most of my agents have that in their head because they just think about the survivorship and they don't go beyond that, right? So when you're dealing with a married couple, it is not the best option because you get a 50% step up only. What does that mean? So if you are a married couple, the husband passes away. They've owned the property for 30 years. Bought the property at 100,000. He dies when the property is worth 1.5. Only his 50% will get stepped up in the eyes of the IRS for tax-based calculations. Can we go to the next slide? Are you kind of following me with that? Stop me if you have questions. So as I mentioned, 50% step up. For a married couple, community property with rights of survivorship will give them 100% step up. So now, if we're not married, obviously, it's still a good thing. The descendants portion gets stepped up for my business partner or my family member that is holding joint tenants. But if I'm holding title with my husband and I had it as joint tenants, only the deceased portion gets stepped up, not 100% of it. Next slide. You're here, Shweta.
Sorry, late.
No, you're fine. Okay, I'm gonna give you guys just a second to look at this slide, the calculations. Sometimes I get tongue twisted and it's easier for me to have you guys just kind of read this for a minute. So I called it the $700,000 mistake because the married couple who held title as a joint tenant will be subject to anywhere from 20 to 30% in capital gains on $700,000. If you hold title as community property with right to survivorship, bought the property at $100,000, husband passes away when the property is valued at 1.5, the IRS looks at that as if you bought the property at 1.5.
Can you say that sentence again? You, one more time?
If you bought the property at 100,000, at the time of death of that one spouse, the property is valued at 1.5 million. The IRS will view the entire property to have been acquired at 1.5 million. So your capital gains is 0.
So your tax base gets adjusted.
Your basis gets adjusted. Yes. Did that wake everyone up?
Good morning.
Good morning. I had a gentleman in my class on Saturday. You guys all know where Hidden Canyon is? Hidden Canyon is a very expensive, exclusive community in the city of Irvine. And like a lot of properties, it's appreciated quite a bit. It's a fairly new community. I would say like 7 years, 7 years. He's an original owner. He bought the property at 2 million with his wife. His wife just passed. The appraisal came in at 7 million. He was holding title as joint tenants. He's an orthopedic surgeon for Hogue. Doesn't have a trust. Was improperly guided. Nobody, and it's not, I'm not knocking an agent, but just didn't know, right? Just didn't know. So this man is now subject to 2.5 million in gains because it's half, right? They bought it at 2 million. So the way the IRS would look at it, the wife bought her portion at $1 million. The wife dies when it's 7 million, right? So she takes half of that, 3.5, and then her 1 million as a purchase price. Her cost basis gets adjusted. His doesn't. His remains at $1 million. So I'm using that number. This one is more easy to conceptualize, but we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. So this particular one, if this married couple is in an average tax bracket for Orange County, it is a difference of $210,000 to the IRS. 700,000 times 30%.
And the 700 is because there's a $1.4 million gain on the property, right?
Correct.
It's half of that.
If you had a trust, that's like, how does it change?
Great question. So one of the items that's on the vesting chart is trust holding title. Guys, that is the #1 way your clients should hold title. The trust avoids all of this conversation. Community property with the rights of survivorship, I like to call it for married couples, a poor man's trust. If you don't have a trust set up, you must at least be in community property with rights of survivorship. The reason why I asked you to come to today, Shweta, because your clients are holding title as joint tenants. So Shweta needed to get some information for one of her clients. But this is something that you guys can do to roll out calls to people you know, neighbors you're talking to, friends and family. Her asking a question about a particular property uncovered that her customers, married couple, are subject to this type of situation. God forbid, I would hope nothing happens to either of them. But if it does,
Question, so if they start in a joint tenancy,
yes,
they're married, then they form a trust, are they able to roll that into?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great question. So that would be considered a vesting change. That was also not be subject to any sort of reassessment. The county only reassesses on vesting changes when the natural parties are different. So husband and wife were on title as joint tenants, and then they created a trust where it was the two of them as trustors, and there's a third person, then it's not equal division of a change. But if it's equal division, if Gina and her husband were holding title as joint tenants and they moved their position into their trust, there's no human change to it. their percentage remains intact.
What happened? If you start off, you purchase a house in joint tenants,
Mhm,
you later on realize you should have a trust.
mhm.
You create a trust, you roll the deed and everything, you change it, it's properly done into the trust.
Mhm,
10 years later, you decide to get divorced.
mhm,
Now, part of the settlement is one of the spouses is taking over the house, the
Mhm.
whole house,
mhm,
right?
Mhm.
No longer, they don't want it in the trust name anymore
mhm.
for different reasons.
Yeah, they're gonna take it out of the trust,
Yeah,
and one's gonna possibly pay them out, whether it's actual cash
after
or
money.
the divorce settlement, yeah.
Right. And then when they, let's say it's me and my husband.
Yeah.
And then I take it out of the debt and family trust and I put it into Gina Soul Woman something.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And then how does that scenario
Well,
affect
so
if I,
take it out.
yeah,
So I love these examples because you guys are all going to witness and experience this at some time in your career. Divorces are very common right now, so we deal with this all the time. So Gina's question is really kind of twofold. The first question is, I think, for taxation reasons, like what happens? Well, even if you receive the property from your spouse, your marriage is now severed because it's a divorce. So you would not be subject to either of these if you're holding title as an individual. So you would receive it from your ex-spouse as a unmarried woman. So you would now be holding title as an unmarried woman. The only way to protect that for your heirs, your two sons, would be to place that into your trust,
a new trust.
a new trust. You would most likely form a new trust.
But the change between the original trust
Yep.
to sole
Yep.
married woman.
Yep.
There is no tax assessment.
There is no property tax reassessment
Reassessment.
because when you make that vesting change, you would use, I recommend using either an interspousal deed or a grant deed. And you would let the county know that this is per a dissolution of marriage. There's a form called a preliminary change of ownership form that give us an ability to answer some questions that help them determine whether or not they are legally allowed to reassess. And a dissolution of marriage, they will keep it intact. So you'll keep your own. Now, when I say tax base, guys, we use tax base in a lot of different forms. That particular question has to do with property taxes, right? So Gina is basically saying, my husband and I bought a home for 300,000. It's now worth 1.8, but our tax base is only 600,000 because we've owned the home for 25 years. If it was reassessed, the county can basically say, okay, you made a change. If it was reassessed, it won't be, but if it was, she's all of a sudden looking at going from a $6,000 annual tax bill to 18,000 if we do simple math of 1%.
Good question.
Yes.
So now it's from the trust, dissolution of marriage, it's
Yeah.
come down to single person.
Yeah.
So now the value of the home when you have to sell it, once you own it just in your name.
Yeah.
So the taxable gain from 1.8, like you mentioned,
Yeah. She would go back to the original,
original value.
of
Not the-
100%.
When they first purchased the house.
Correct. Unless, and this is getting really technical.
Yeah.
Our newer agents are probably head spinning. This is getting really technical and it's something that you'd have to work through with an accountant. I've seen divorce dissolutions go multiple ways. Sometimes there's an actual physical buyout. It's not that there's money exchanged at the table, but the divorce stipulates that Gina is going to buy out her soon-to-be ex for 600,000. And you tell the world that she's actually giving him 600,000 to come off of title and to move. So if you do it that way, could look like a partial sale. So that is, Gina's gonna go home and chat GPT instead of calling her CPA.
She's doing that.
But that is,
Use cloud.
for different reasons, I see.
By the way, this is not for my life. I do have a friend going through this.
Oh, okay.
So this is like a real scenario that could
She's straight.
could be one of your friends, your family members are going through it.
Good.
So you wanna help them, help guide them through it a little
Yeah.
bit.
And guys, keep in mind, while I appreciate you guys all coming here to learn and get more knowledgeable, all of the stuff that we're teaching you, and especially coming from someone like me, is really to help you aim at business development. Don't learn this and stick it in your head like an encyclopedia. Learn this, digest it, and think about how you can go out there and preach it to people you meet, because it will make a difference to people that you know. Let's go back a little more back on top. Oh, yes.
Hi, Mary.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I appreciate your information. I just wonder, because we are not expert in tax or CPA, what we should tell our customer or what we should not tell them, because we may liable afterwards.
So Alice, legally, we're not, I being from Title II, am not allowed to give vesting advice. Utilize this chart that we have, and I'll have Carlos email it out to all of us too. But giving them the vesting chart, the way I tell my consumers when I get a call, so always feel free to connect them with me. And when I talk to Mr. Smith, who is Gina's customer, I will say, Mr. Smith, by law, I am not supposed to advise you, but I can tell you for my own parents, for my family, this is what I recommend for married people. And I leave it at that. But I also recommend for you that you run this by your estate attorney or your CPA. And then they're gonna do what they want with it, right? Does that answer your question, Alice?
Yes, thank you.
So
I have a question too, Mary.
Okay, hold on one second. Let's get Shway this question first. I'm trying to get it up. Go ahead.
So now, when you're doing the vesting change from joint to community,
Yes.
is there a cost involved?
Yes, the cost it's very minimal. It's between $100 to $150 with the county recorders. If you go to an attorney, it'll be somewhere between $600 to $1,000, and they'll draft everything up and get it changed. As I get older, I forget things if I don't just blurt it out. Sorry. I'm gonna also say this because I want you guys to remember this, guys. Remember, we have different exemptions too, right? Like primary residence, you get 250,000 exempt, which lowers your cost basis essentially. But this change, this poor man's trust called community property with rights of survivorship for your married couples, goes across the board for every property they own. What I mean by that is, if Mr. Smith has his primary and he's got 4 investment properties and his wife dies, all the properties get stepped up. Not just one.
What if they're all holding title on different?
They better all be holding title as community property with rights of survivorship.
That's with the assumption they all are
Yes.
unified in that.
Right, and that's what I'm saying, another great conversation for you guys when you're sitting at the table with your customers, working with the buyer. You even share that info. I know you mentioned to me that you own some other properties. The idea is you're trying to get deeper and deeper into your buyers or your clients or your sphere of influences roadmap, right? Like what their finances look like. You're trying to get more and more embedded in there. And some people, like I've had clients say, oh yeah, I tried this and I didn't even know I was helping this buyer for 6 months and showed them 80 properties. I didn't even know they own 2 investment properties. And you know what? For that, shame on you guys. Shame on you guys, because it shouldn't be a transaction. It should be by giving them enough information that could somehow help them or their family. You should be able to uncover more and more info about them. And with something like this, great way. Like if you're working with people to offer it to them, let me check. I'm happy do this review for your parents or your family members too. Let me know when you get a chance and I'll do that.
Michael, you had a question?
You had a question.
Oh, who was it?
Hmm.
Shrill's on here? I didn't see him on there.
Hey, yeah.
Oh, okay, there you
Hey,
Right.
I don't know if you
Thanks.
answered this already, but going back to the $7 million example, so you
Yes.
mentioned because the property was not in a trust, the husband had to pay 2.5 for capital gain. So if it was in a trust, then what would be the scenario?
If it was in a trust or as community property with rights of survivorship, and if the husband sells it soon after the wife dies, they got the appraisal for 7 million. If he sells it at 7 million, his capital gains would be 0.
Just because it's in a trust?
Or community property with rights of survivorship.
Oh, I see.
The reasoning is when you inherit through the trust, or if you inherit through community property with rights of survivorship, the IRS takes the entire property, 100%, the dead person's portion and the surviving person's portion, and brings up the cost basis to current market value of time of death.
Okay, makes sense.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. You guys interested in knowing about a little bit about inheritance also? Okay. This is going to go off the slide a little bit. These are such great questions. And because you keep bringing up trust, which is a big part. But I didn't circle this presentation around trust because do you know that in the United States, only 37% of homeowners have their property in a trust? The remaining don't.
What does it cost to put your property in a trust?
The cost to put your property in a trust, the same as joint tenants to community property, would just be the cost of recording. To establish a trust, you're looking at anywhere from $3,000 to $7,000. But it's the best $3,000 to $7,000 your clients will spend, guaranteed. So I'm going to just spend a couple minutes, go off track for a minute because we're talking about trust. Same thing with parents leaving behind assets to their children. It's such a big thing for healthy, live, well parents to want to give their kids the property while they're alive. That is one of the biggest mistakes that I see family members doing. If you receive the property from your parents after they pass away and you receive it through their trust, you get 100% step up. So let's go back to my Hidden Valley guy, right? The guy that's property is currently appraised at 7 million. Take his wife out of the equation. Let's say he was just a single man. And he decided to give the property to his son now before he dies. When the son goes to sell it, the IRS will use his cost of 2 million as what he received this gift at. So the IRS would basically say, you didn't buy this, you got this as a gift, but for purposes of calculating your capital gains, you're selling it at 7, you have a $5 million gain. But if the dad had the property in a trust and passed it to his son, the day that dad dies, the IRS would say, okay, son, here's your inherited property. We will view this as you buying it at 7 million. So if he sells it 2 months after dad passes away, his capital gains is 0.
7,250,000.
Yes. So it's such a great, nice gesture that parents want to do. But I'll tell you what, there better be a darn good reason why a parent would gift the property to the kids right now while they're alive. And some of them are valid, right? I see parents I think the most legitimate value one is, you know what, I really want to help them establish credit. This is my final and only gift to them. So I'm going to deed it to them. He's going to go out and, I'm going to give it to him for free. he's gonna go out and do a cash out mortgage, start establishing credit, or something like that? Possibly. But with how much appreciation our real estate sector has seen in our industry, it is one of the dumbest mistakes. And we're a pretty ethnic group in this office. Like I see it so often with Asian families, like Koreans, Chinese. They do it so often. They just want to add their kids. They want to give them the property now.
Much love.
Too much love. Yeah, give it to them.
They don't know how to save, so they gotta do it through actions and deeds.
And, you know, then you hear scenarios of people saying like, well, you know, like there's all sorts of scenarios, right?
In that vein though, let's say you're older and you're thinking, oh, I wanna see it before I die.
Yeah.
I wanna see them with the benefit. So then you wanna give them the house.
Let them move in.
So then you're like, well, that's not a good idea. Because Mary told me it's not a good idea.
Well, they can move in.
Yeah.
That's pretty tight.
I know, but I'm just trying to say, like, so then you think about that way, you talk to Mary, Mary's like, I don't think that's a good idea. But in your head, you're like, well, I'm gonna die soon, and I wanna see something. If the parents go to sell the house, this is a good talking point for us all as real estate
Yeah.
agents too. Parents decide and said, I'm gonna sell the house, it's just easy math, it's worth $1 million, okay? I sell it for $1 million, I bought it for $100,000, right? It's all paid off cash. If I go to sell that house, I'll pay capital gains tax on it.
Yeah.
Right, at whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I could gift $19,000 every year.
Yeah.
Per person.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Grandson, anybody I want, and they don't get a tax implication for receiving the 19,000,
Correct,
right?
correct.
But in that example, they can have their kids move into the property without transferring title.
They could.
And then
right?
when they pass away, then they
They
just transfer it.
they
Yeah.
transfer it over automatically.
So they can live in the property and not be owners.
I have a question. So, you told us about the kind of probate in the beginning
Yes.
and the will.
Yes.
Just like
Uh-huh.
kind of evidence, but not the effective like that. So there are a lot of singles who doesn't have any family.
Yeah.
No kids and
Yeah.
things. So if the person want to pass this one after dying, it's the same thing in the trust is the best way.
The best way, yeah. So if you're holding title singly on your own,
Mhm.
the property will go to probate,
Mhm.
regardless of what your will says,
Mhm.
right? And then the money will get dispersed to whoever you're leaving it to. Only way to avoid that as as a sole owner
Mhm.
would be a trust.
So it's safe from any liabilities too, right? So like if someone were to come after you and the property's in trust, they can't come after can they come after your property?
Yes,
Like
they
if it wasn't an LLC?
They can.
Okay.
Trust doesn't necessarily, so Carlos is asking, is there some protection utilizing a trust? There could be a little bit, but generally speaking, that's not the mechanism. If
So
you're
like
trying
if
to
you,
protect-
if
if you're a
it's an
landlord.
LLC, that's different, right?
Yes.
And there's protection.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. Next slide. I love these questions, guys. So as I was mentioning, and this is just kind of bullet pointed for you guys. Whether they're one-on-ones, social media content, warm phone call conversations. Guys, this is the types of things that sets you apart. Right? This is not you calling to say, do you want to buy or sell a home? Who do you know that needs my help? Instead of being that person, what if you started giving them valuable information that can help them and their families? And that's what I structured this kind of like mini springtime campaign that I'm doing with all my clients, is giving you guys something to go out there with to help people. You help enough people, you have enough of these conversations, and the business will come, right? So my client that I did the seminar for this last weekend, she had like 72 people in her workshop. One was in English, one was in Chinese. And this was purely from cold calling, farming, social media. People are interested in this, guys. Like, especially right now with how much, people are very financially and economically sensitive, right? And there is no doubt that we pay a lot in taxes. And all the real estate agents are doing is, oh, get me, come list with me because I sold 100 million last year. Who the hell cares? Is that gonna make a difference for Mr. Chen? No, it's not, right? And that's not to knock that marketing piece. Hey, some marketing is better than no marketing. But my point is, what your consumers, what the general public wants now is actually knowledge. What can you do for me lately? And this knowledge is not necessarily, some people are like, oh, but that's a long nurture time. Well, what's your alternative? What is your alternative? You nurture people enough and give them enough value. That's where the referrals start coming in. That's where people start calling you and asking you questions. So you're opening up a line of communication to have them look at you as a resource. That's what you want, guys. That's for all of us in this room. That's not just real estate agent. That's a title rep. That's a mortgage broker. You get enough calls with people asking you questions to a point where when they have the need for your service, you're going to be that person. Because guess what? Everyone that you think of as a potential client, they probably know at least another 5 or 6 realtors. We're a dime a dozen. So set yourselves apart. Next slide. Yeah, so, we've gone through this industry. Historically, real estate agents, so this is what I see in our industry. I think way back when, in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, I think we had very proficient real estate salespeople. What I mean by that is they weren't consultants. They were great negotiators. They knew contracts. They knew the inventory. So very black and white box that they fit into. But with the rise of all the technology, all the information, that skill set has become less and less necessary, right? There was back in the days, there was actually a time like before emails and stuff. Carlos, do you remember the pink sheets?
Yes.
So Carlos has been in the business longer than I have, but when I first got into the business, you guys know that you can get into the MLS and put in a search on Wednesday morning to pull up what broker's preview is on, what properties are open for broker preview. Back in the days when I first started, I'd have to race to one of these big offices and go to the receptionist and say, did you guys get a pink sheet in? It was physically a pink piece of paper that had a list of the homes that were open that day, right?
I wish it was like that.
There was no Redfin. There was no Zillow. I mean, there were, but it was not the engine that it is now, right? So back in those days, the agents had to, the quicker that you knew, that's why people went to open houses. They wanted to be in the know. But all of that is like now obsolete because your consumers can find all that on their own. They don't need you. As a matter of fact, they don't want you because the stuff you give, it's actually slower than how quickly their, Redfin app is paying them. You called them 6 days later to say, oh, I found a property. How stupid do you look? Right? So what do we have to do? We have to get into their lives and start becoming financial consultants. You have to start helping them build a legacy for their families through real estate. And that's across the board, guys. It's not just what you do. It's the same for life insurance salesmen. It's the same for financial planners. I don't need my Charles Schwab money advisor to tell me that the Dow is down 900 points. Because guess what? Siri was telling me while I was driving here. I don't need him to tell me that. What do I need? I need him to tell me when there are imperative changes that I need to make that can make a difference for my son when I die. I need him to tell me changes of tweaks that I need to make into my trust so that I'm holding my accounts the proper way. And those are the shoes you guys need to put on. It's not about like, oh, getting them and showing them these properties. That's a given. Like your jobs have become a little more complex. But the good thing is, a lot of people aren't doing this, guys. If you continue to go out there like a vacuum cleaner salesperson or a Girl Scout cookie salesperson, your careers are going to be very short-lived and it's going to be very hard. Very hard. You've heard of all these changes going on, right? You guys are now part of a large, massive organization. Compass bought you guys out. Compass has bought out a majority of the companies.
Even Jetfin, no?
They didn't buy them out, but they did a huge
Yeah.
merger with them.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of changes in the industry, guys. And if you're gonna just sit back and, think that you're gonna get calls from your consumers because they like you, newsflash, you're not. It's gonna be less and less. You need to start making outbounds and you need to start preaching to them points of benefit. Next slide. We can actually send this to you too. So these are just some simple scripts. Wait, our Zoom people can read all this, right?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know about you guys. I'm not really a good scripter. I just talk a lot. I think if you're not a scripter either, like Shweta's very good on camera. She does a lot of social media. She talks to a lot of people. I'm sure she's on that way at open houses too. But here's what I would do, especially for our newer agents. Here's what I would do. Read these. Come up with your own. Ask me questions. Ask Carlos questions if there's something about today's presentation that you're not certain of. But make your own script. That way you can be sitting in a chair like this that I'm sitting in. You see that I'm passionate about this, right? Like I'm really, really passionate about this. So when I talk to people, I don't go off of a script, but I can convey the important. Harry's going to leave here today going, holy shit, let me check my property. Let me check my mom's property. That's what you can do if you know the content and create your own script. So come up with a few different scripts, keep it in your back pocket. For those of us that do a lot of open houses, I would have a script like this in my back pocket. If you have a neighbor walking in, you can talk to buyers about it too, but it would be a much, much easier conversation with a neighbor because it's highly likely that they own a home in that tract and they come in and you're talking to them, you built a rapport, you do a follow-up 2 days after the open house, then you do another follow-up the next 2 weeks and you say something like, by the way, Mary, I'm in the process right now. This week's task for me is I'm, doing vesting reviews for all my clients. I have a little extra time. Is that something you would be interested in? Well, what do you mean by a vesting review? Then you explain to them a little bit of what we learned. You haven't asked them to buy anything. You haven't asked them to sell anything with you. You haven't asked them for money. You're offering them a free service, right? Next slide.
So the $1 million question,
Yes,
where do we access vesting information?
on the grant deed.
Where do we get that from?
From Mary Gwak at River's Title.
Team Mary Gwak.
So for those of us that are newer in the business, when I say audit your top 50 clients, audit your top 50 people in your life. I had one of my realtors call me 2 nights ago. Was it 2 nights ago? Yeah, 2 nights ago. He got a call. His handyman died. The wife called him. Like, that's pretty good.
The handyman dies.
Well, no, it tells me that this, and I knew this about him, this realtor is just embedded with everyone that he knows, right? He's embedded, he's a handyman to a lot of realtors, but he called my realtor, right? Because he was always home talking to his children and his wife about this one particular agent. So they looked him up. Why I share that with you is because one of the most common objections that I get from agents that are under 5 years in the business, well, I don't have large SOI. Guys, an SOI is nothing fancy. It can be very fancy, right? I have a client who has 2,000 people in her A SOI and another 3,000 in her B and C's. Doesn't have to be that. Top 50, top 5, top 10, I don't care. Pick a number.
Call up all your, what do you say, your friends,
Yeah.
parents.
Yeah.
And find out, hey, I've become a realtor.
And
And this is
if
what
you
I'm
feel
doing.
shy, I get it. Believe it or not, guys, I'm an introvert. I'm shy. I may not believe it, but I really am.
We don't.
I'm very much an introvert. I like to be by myself. I never like to talk. It takes
Because
a
you talk enough outside.
Yeah.
what it is.
Extroverted introvert.
I don't like small talk. If people talk to you by the water cooler, or people talk to you like at church. Like I don't
That even I don't like, even
yeah,
I'm
I
an
don't
introvert.
really care what you ate for lunch. Like to me, that's like
Most like mechanics that are working on cars all day, they don't like working on their own car at home.
Yeah. But when it's like real stuff, I love it.
So we're on a phone call with our sphere of influence.
Yep.
Calling our top 50 people in our lives.
Yep.
And reminding them that we're real estate agents,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
That we're there for them. We mentioned their vesting to them. We noticed that we know that they're married because we've known them for a long time. We already looked up the title. We see that they're under joint tenants.
Yep.
We start a conversation about community property.
Yep.
Rights of survivorship. Did you know? Did you know? Did you know?
Yep.
They say, how do I get this change? What do I do? I say, I got this great friend named Mary Gwak,
Yeah.
right?
Or a law firm.
Or a
Yep.
law firm.
Yep.
But the cheaper way is, to talk to my married friend, my friend Mary Gwak about it, maybe, right?
Yeah.
And that's how you get the ball
Yeah.
rolling.
Yes.
It's easy as that.
That was perfect setup for what I wanted to say. For those of us that are a little shy, make up a fib. Say, hey, this is something that I started doing for my clients. Even if this is the first call you made,
Or you
and I
can
thought
say,
of you.
we had this great meeting in the office today and they talked about all these ways of holding title. And I was just checking, I wanted to check with you, by the way, how are you?
But even on my personal life, Mary has helped me out.
Oh, yeah,
You know,
she's
Because
transferred.
I noticed one of my properties, I don't know if it's because when I refied or something, it somehow it fell out of the trust.
Yeah.
And then I noticed that when I pulled the title on, I'm like, it's no longer in the trust for some reason.
That's another great setup.
It just happened. I don't know what happened. And then I went to Mary and Mary helped me out. It's fantastic, smooth, excellent.
So this is the way it would look, guys. If you decide to run with this and get, add this to your business. Today's Thursday. Let's say you're gonna start rolling out calls on Monday. And you have 2 or
today.
however many people. Segregate up the list. I'll do 2 or 3 a day, however you set your goals, right? Get that needs from me, do what she's saying, and then you can create the conversation however comfortable you are. Some people may be weirded out that you looked at their title, but they don't have to know you looked at their title, right? You can still say, I'll check it for you. I will guarantee you that you will come for every 10 calls you make, you're gonna have at least 2 people that are wrong. They're thinking they hold title in one way, but they're really not. Absolutely will come across that.
And some don't even know.
They don't know. But to Gina's point, while you're doing this is not part of the presentation, but while you're doing this, you're also going to uncover conversations with people. Let's talk about trust a little bit, guys. I can go to Newport Beach and get the best attorney to set up a $15,000 trust for me. Because I think my life is complex and I have so much money and whatever. But guess what? If I didn't put my property in it, that trust does me no good. My property will still be probate. So while you're having this conversation, while you're doing the research through me, if your client tells you, your sister tells you, oh no, we have nothing to worry about, John and I put it in a trust. Well, guess what? When she did her refi 3 years ago with Citibank, they took it out of her trust and they didn't put it back. Nobody told them. That is so common. That is
What happens to me.
so common.
So when you go door knocking, you can say that also.
Mhm.
I would love to do a vesting check that I normally only do for my clients.
So during that conversation, would you bring up a trust if they don't have a trust instead, or just go upstream to community property, or give them an option?
Tell them, if I were having the conversation, I would say your most foolproof way is to go see an attorney and set up a trust. But I have seen a lot of people don't actually go through with it. So this is the next best option, is community property with rights of survivorship, for those of you that are married. I would still bring it up.
Yeah.
Because it's not an end all be all. I'd much rather see everybody be in a trust. And you guys would be amazed. I mean, like I told you, that Hidden Valley guy, he is a surgeon. How to not have a trust? But
So busy saying lies.
But you know what? This past 2 weeks, I've had 2 different doctors. Why I'm telling you guys that, it's not to impress you to say like, oh, they're doctors and they don't have a trust. My point is,
They're
It-
done too.
it has nothing to do with intelligence or level of how much money they have or education. People don't know, guys. People just don't know. They just kind of like, they do it, they turn the key and they're done and they forget about it. So don't call yourself a real estate specialist if we're not willing to roll up our sleeves and uncover different people's situations that can help make hundreds of thousands of dollars difference for their family legacy.
It's possible that nobody sat down and took the time to explain it to them,
No,
what the difference is.
I'm so excited about.
this is like my first quarter campaign. So I've restructured my business a little bit and I'm gonna actually kind of do what I'm teaching you guys to do. Some of you who have had meetings with me, I tell you, get a topic or two and eat, breathe, and live it. So it's stuff I know, but I am basically going to go on a quarterly campaign. So this quarter's campaign is vesting. And I've got a couple more meetings scheduled for the month of March. When I'm done, I will have probably spoken in front of about 400 or 500 people. And I can guarantee you it will be less than 4 or 5 people who actually move the needle in their business with it. People don't do it. So don't take this as one more thing. Okay, well, like, great, I got so many things to do. This will be such a great way for you to dive into the large ocean and set yourself apart.
And it makes you sound like you know what you're talking about with the industry when you talk about things like this, instead of just, oh, 3 properties sold last month, whatever it is, right? They know that because they see the signs go up and down. And they go on Zillow and they look to see what's on the market, things like that, but they don't hear about these types of things. So hearing me talk about this, in addition to or in place of, properties that go up and down on the market, it just makes you look more like you know what you're talking about.
So based in conclusion, everything should be trust.
Yeah.
That's the safest one, right?
Yes.
But people that
Because it's so expensive.
Oh.
3 to 7,000.
So this is trust.
So people, plus like when you're setting up a trust, it's not just your real estate and your like financial assets. A lot of times it's like, this is my experience with my family, where I'm telling them, hey, you should have a trust, you should have a trust. And they know they should have a trust, but they have children and they are arguing about who gets custody of the children if they die. His side of the family, her side of the family, and that particular pain point in the conversation delays them making their trust. I see a lot of times, because everything else seems so simple, health directive, all the stuff that's in your trust. But that, in my personal experience, that's what I've seen.
For married couples, it's a very tough meeting.
So the only difference between the having it in a trust and community property with rights of ownership, that beneficiaries,
In a trust,
Yeah, I mean, is that like a main difference between the two?
a trust is, no, well, in the terms of real estate, yes, in the terms of real estate. Yeah, but with the trust, you guys, it's, Gina's right on. That's usually one of the biggest reasons why people put it off is the money and they don't want to have tough conversations. It will literally be in a room like this with the attorney. Some of the attorneys give you the questionnaire and people fight over it. I've seen couples break up over it, right?
Wow.
Marriages break up over it because there's a lot of tough questions. So for those of you that know, I became a widow 4 years ago. And I remember when my husband and I went to set up our trust, my son was 3. And we had to like disclose our feelings about our family that we never had to before. Because to Gina's point, when you have young children, you don't really talk about it, right? So my husband determined, he's like, he comes from an entire medical group of family members, but he didn't want his life, what do you call it? The do not resuscitate. His health directive. He didn't want to put the health directive on me because that would be too much pressure. He put the health directive on my brother, who was like very military-esque, because he didn't want to be resuscitated. So he knew his mom, who was an ER nurse, or his aunt, like, that's their baby, right? So that kind of thing, it was like, okay, that's weird. And then like, what were we going to do with our children? So at that point, I had to tell him I hated his sister, that there was no way his sister was going to raise my son, right? But it was important because to him, he thought, oh yeah, of course my sister would raise our son. I'm like, no, she's not. Like so it's a very hard conversation, but you know what, you guys, it's still, for me, and I think that's part of the reason why I'm so passionate about it, because I have personal experience. And I will tell people that I don't like do this kind of room and tell people like, oh, I'm a widow, but my passion comes from, I know how real it is. I see families suffer because they don't have it. I have a very good client of mine, his best friend died on a hiking accident at 49. He was a very well-to-do CPA. Going back to doctors and people that we think should know, this guy had nothing protected. Nothing protected. Within 6 months, his wife had to vacate because the home got foreclosed.
Oh, God.
They lived in a $4 million house in Yorba Linda. 2 small children. She's never worked a day in her life since she got said I do. Because he didn't have a trust set up. The terrible people in his life, his partners, business partners, came after everything. She wasn't a part of his estate. All gone. Imagine if you can help somebody in your life change that trajectory. Not saying that someone in your life, something bad's going to happen, but guys, bad things do happen. It happens more than you realize.
Here's a question, what if you own a property, you're single, you get married, and you never change the vesting on it?
Question. This is another very good one.
Because typically, like when people get married, they buy a house together, right?
Yes.
But in this example, let's say the wife owns the house. They get married.
Yep. It's a great question. This was actually one of my coverages at my weekend seminar. The state of California is considered community property. So the moment you get married, I don't care if you have a prenup, for the purposes of realtor, title, and escrow, the moment you get married, all the properties that you owned as a single person
Community.
becomes community property with no acknowledgement. There doesn't have to be anything done. So if I get married tomorrow, all of my assets that I'm holding outside of my trust, half of it becomes community property to my new spouse. In regards to your homes. And this part, you guys are going to encounter, not just with your singles, but you're also, you should know this, for your elderly clients who have grown children, right? If someone owns the property and they're getting married, and they've already decided yours is yours, mine is mine. The protection for the real estate owner would be the moment you get married, that the spouse does a quitclaim deed or an interspousal deed. So they're basically relinquishing their rights. They're saying, this is yours. I have nothing to do with it. That's the only way it remains as your sole and separate property. If you don't do that and you don't do anything, our world assumes that half of that goes to your spouse.
Even if yours is in a trust.
The trust is different. The trust is different, so that too becomes a little more of legal advice. But the trust would have to include language that any property I acquired prior to this marriage will remain. That's how our trust is set up. My husband and I had set it up that way, that if something were to happen to him, of course, we never thought anything would, right?
Yeah.
But it basically, and that's for the protection of my child.
Yeah.
Because my husband and I both wanted to know if one of us were to die, we want to make sure Aiden is protected. So if you go off and getting married, we want to make sure that anything you acquired prior to the new marriage remains in the Nakamura, like in our families for my son. But we have that included. If it doesn't, then it can be,
So I can have multiple trusts, right?
yes, you can.
So I can have one trust, Dunton Family Trust, but then let's say my husband and I, Toby and Gina, decide to purchase a property with one of our sons.
Yeah.
Before he is married.
Yep.
I create a second trust.
Yep,
I put another property in that trust.
that's right.
My son gets married.
It's protected.
She turns out to be Looney Tunes.
Don't put that on again.
It happens, guys.
And something, but that property is still protected.
Protected, yes.
But she would still have to do interspousal deed when they
Nope,
got married? Or
Nope,
she doesn't have
if
to?
it's built into the trust. So make sure it's built in. Most good attorneys will bring the question up. I don't know how it was 20 years ago, because I just did my trust 15, but currently, I know that that's part of the question, right? Like I've seen recent questionnaires and the attorney will ask, how do you want to treat community property for future marriages? Yeah, so for our elderly clients who have grown children, right? It's something, again, guys, people don't know. Do you know how many times I get people arguing with me? Well, that was my property before I married her. Okay. Don't tell me.
There's automatically in the state of California.
Correct.
it's 50-50,
Correct.
Whether it is before or after.
And it's one of those things, guys, like, so I have a lot of aunts and uncles between my side and my husband's side, and I'm not, from some of the people, I'm really not favored. Some of the people hate me because
That.
like second marriages, I will tell the family member, hey, not trying to be a pot stirrer, but I know you want, like, my husband's uncle got remarried and he doesn't have a lot. He has one house and it was very important to him that he leaves that to his kids. So I said, Uncle Wayne, the moment you marry Diana, this will be half hers. So she needs to either execute a quitclaim deed or you need to set up a separate trust before. And they got married at a courthouse. So I gave them some time. I told them a week before the wedding and she wasn't happy with me. But guess what? If she's not happy with that then, what's going to happen later? He'd go to war with her. Or Uncle Wayne would die and the kids would be left with nothing as he had desired. And I am not like saying like the communion of marriage is not important. That's not my point. But my point is, whatever your wishes and desires were, if you don't execute the right paperwork and set it up in place, it's not going to get honored. There's laws that will trump your desires. Such a good question.
Thank you, Mary Gwak. I
Wow.
learned so much today. Yeah, oh my God.
I don't even know what the next slide is, but I think that's a good place to.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I always want to.
Wow.
Otherwise it'll be information overload.
Yes, yes.
Thanks, Mary, like seriously.
You know, it's good to get the part about, it's also important how to keep it
Hi,
and
how
how
are
to
you doing?
maintain it for the,
Go ahead.
in future,
Yeah.
like for the kids
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
things. Wow.
I mean, think about it, right? Like, for those of us that have kids and families, you work your entire life trying to do good, trying to, leave something behind or make sure, whatever way, I don't care if it's a vehicle or a house, that it goes to the right people.
Yeah.
But a couple of oversights or mistakes or no thoughts will basically flush everything down the toilet.
So Mary, like, if there's somebody that I know that needs to change from joint tenants to community property registered partnership, they could just call me directly, or what's the right way to do this?
So there's been some recent changes to how I can help. I'm still helping people. If it's within Orange County, it's a lot easier. If it's out of county, it's a little bit harder for me to do the